Hello, I'm Ron Strickland. This webcast is one of a series in which I'm presenting some brief lectures and commentaries on topics from the courses I teach in literature and cultural studies. In an earlier episode, I've said some things about the wife of Bath as she appears in the representation of her by the narrator in the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Here I'll be focusing on the wife of Bath as a character speaking in her own voice, ostensibly, although, of course, her words are written by Geoffrey Chaucer, the male author of the poem. She was first married at 12 years old to a wealthy old man, and this is not an uncommon situation. Her husbands, being older than she is, have some tendency to die on her, and she'd been married 5 times, and in the process, she's grown rich herself. Her prologue turns into a debate with the religious authorities of the time and their attitudes toward what is proper behavior and the proper role of women in society. And she's been to church quite a bit, and maybe not always for religious reasons. Church was a good place to go to be seen and wear your fine clothes, and might be a place to find a husband or a romance. She's heard a lot of sermons, and a lot of these sermons elaborate the writings of a Christian divine from the 4th century, St. Jerome. St. Jerome is famous for his view that women were inherently sinful, beginning with Eve, and famous for being the early Christian thinker who established the celibacy of the priesthood. He wrote a text called On Marriage and Virginity. So I've got an interlinear translation here. We can go back and forth between the Middle English and a modern translation of it. She says, well, experience, though no written authority, experience is good enough for me to speak of woe that is in marriage. For gentlemen, since I was 12 years of age, thanks be to God, I've had 5 husbands at the church door. But to me it was told, certainly it's not long ago, that since Christ went never but once to a wedding in the Cana of Galilee, that by the same example he taught me that I should be wedded but once. Listen also, she says, beside a well, Jesus, who was God and man, all sorts of familiar phrases, characteristic turns of phrase here. Jesus was God made flesh. But maybe you don't emphasize it so strongly as to say he was God and man. If he was God, he probably wouldn't be of much interest to her, since he also was a man. She's interested in men rather more than gods. So he was beside a well, and he spoke in reproof to a Samaritan, a woman of Samaria, who was there by the well. Jesus spoke in reproof to her. You've had 5 husbands, and that same man that you now have is not your husband. What he meant by this, she says, I cannot say. But I ask why the 5th man was no husband to the Samaritan. So immediately, she's misunderstanding what he's saying. What he means is what? How does he define a husband? Someone whom you have taken a vow with, a vow of marriage, in a religious ceremony. It's recognized by society, and so on. How does she think of a husband? Someone you're with, that's very delicately put. Yeah, someone you're with. Someone you sleep with every night. Someone you have sex with. Someone who's your companion. Someone who you've thrown in with in economic matters and social matters. Someone you're associated with. All practical matters relating to experience. And so it doesn't occur to her that the deal is the vow. But that's what it's all about. She's been married 5 times, and maybe these old men she got married to weren't with her for her piety. In any case, that's not what she thinks of first. So she says, why is this 5th man he's talking about, not her husband? She's with him. Right? What he's really saying is, well, you've had 5 husbands that you took vows with, and now you're living with someone without taking a vow. And that's an issue for the established church. Maybe an issue that kind of goes over her head. She's talking about practical experience, not some high-flown religious ideals and laws or prescriptions. Well, how many might she have in marriage? How many men can a woman properly marry? I never yet heard tell in my lifetime a definition of this number. I never heard a precise number. Men may conjecture, she says, and interpret in every way, but well, I know expressly without lie, God commanded us to grow fruitful and multiply. Okay? That gentle text I can well understand. Also, I know well, he said, my husband should leave his father and his mother and take to me. But he made no mention of number, of marrying 2 or of marrying 8. Why should men then speak evil of it? Lo, consider here the wise king Solomon. I believe he had wives more than one, as would God it were lawful unto me to be refreshed half so often as he. I like her choice of words there. Refreshment. You want to know how many wives King Solomon had? I think the number was 700. And on top of those 700, he had 300 concubines. The wife of Bath says, I could go for that. But anyway, maybe if not 700, what's the problem with 5 or 6 or 7 or 8? What a gift of God had he because of all of his wives. Now, here the translation, the modern translation is, what a gift of God had he because of all of his wives. That translation is okay, but I find it funnier if I can read it as a double entendre, if I can open up some nuance in the interpretation. Sure, it's a gift from God for Solomon to have all those wives. But if it's the wife of Bath, I think she might be more interested in what a man like Solomon might have for a woman rather than what God had to give to him. And so I want to read that gift maybe as suggesting that, but if you'll allow me to descend into vulgarity just for a moment, he must have been well endowed. Well, God knows this noble king, according to my judgment, the first night he had many a merry fit with each of them. So well things went for him in his lifetime. But he had lots of good first nights. Blessed be God, I have wedded 5, of which I have picked out the best, both of their lower purse and of their strong box. Their lower purse, the purse that hangs by their side, and here the modern translator has suggested scrotum, lower purse. Oh. But she might be interested. Differing schools make perfect clerks, and differing practice in many various works makes the workman truly perfect. Of 5 husbands schooling am I, welcome the 6th, wherever he shall appear. For truly I will not keep myself chaste in everything. When my husband is gone from the world, some Christian man shall wed me straightway. For then the apostle says that I am free to wed. By God's side I swear, wherever it please me.
So the wife of Bath is brash, bawdy, and funny. She must have seemed comically ridiculous to Chaucer's original audience, but it's hard not to admire her for her effort to take control of her life in a male-dominated society. With that, I'll conclude this webcast, but in a subsequent video, I'll have more to say about Chaucer's Canterbury Tales.